right, Zach, welcome to Living Off Rentals.
All right, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here, man. So Zach and I met at RubeCon, which is the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. I've had a few people actually on here who were at the conference here recently. And we really connected and have kind of shared experiences and shared values. And so once I heard a little bit more about your story, I thought, it's kind of perfect for this community. And you're from Ohio, and it seems like everyone I meet from Ohio, I like. My best buddy from the Armies and lives in Ohio. So I just, I know you've got a depth of experience in rental properties and always looking to learn new things. And that's the type of people I like to surround myself with as well. So I kind of want to walk through and deconstruct your path to living off rentals, because I think that's really what helps people the most, hearing somebody that's done it and kind of the things that you recommend doing and things you recommend not doing, and maybe some mistakes along the way too. So if you could kind of start off with a little bit more about your background and then how you first got into to real estate.
Yeah. So, I followed the traditional plan out of high school to college, and went into engineering and manufacturing management program at the old General Motors Institute, now Kettering University. And it was probably mostly influenced. My stepfather worked at General Motors, Lordstown here in Northeast Ohio. And that was where all the top dogs in GM came through there, and all these, titans of manufacturing engineering industry.
Was that the Jack Welch days?
So back when it started, it was much more. It's like a high school.
Okay.
There's 700 people there, 800
wow.
people.
Holy cow.
It is two buildings, and it's very selective, small. And every 3 months you switch. You go to school for 3 months. You go to work for 3 months. So at its time, it was one of the few full-time co-op schools. And I hope that today there are a lot more of those, because you come out with experience and specialization, versus the traditional college program of we're spitting out hundreds of thousands of kids with just general education degrees, very little experience, and good luck, go find a job and figure out what you want to do, versus these schools. And it doesn't have to be a 4-year program. I mean, even just like a 2-year trade school, it's just something where you're getting a specialization and coming out with targeted experience. And I heard that about GMI, and I was like, oh, that's great, because I really don't want to go to school. Like, I want to work, and I can do 3 months at a time. And so started there in engineering, and ended up with a degree in manufacturing management, which was like 2.5 years of engineering, and then the last 2 more focused on business and manufacturing facility management. And came out of there. I had been co-oping at General Motors Lordstown, but took an opportunity with Daimler Chrysler up in Michigan. And so moved up there, was working in Mexico back and forth on what used to be the PT Cruiser facility in Mexico, and enjoyed that. And again, just focused on what I was taught, like get a job, work, pay off your vehicles, just save your money. And I started to look at buying a house. And I remember, so this would have been 2003, 2004, and in Royal Oak. I'm like, man, these are $180,000, $200,000, 60-year-old houses. And I was like, you know what? I really don't even like living up here. Like, all my family and friends are back in Ohio. And I was like, why don't I look to come back to Ohio? We can get, you get better value for housing and get out of the Detroit City metro area. And so in 2005 is when I came down to Ohio, working for the Timken company and industrial, focused on continuous improvement, process improvement, supply chain there. And I bought my first house in 2005 and got a lot more value for that $175,000. Got a brand new build on about a quarter of an acre. Wow. And still focused on just working right?
Yeah.
Working and saving, maxing that 401k out, which completely against now, but yeah, maxing 401k and working and saving. And I remember hearing at the Timken company about some guys that were buying rentals. I was like, oh, that's okay. What's that mean? Or what's that look like? I've never known anybody, never heard anybody really talk about it. But I came to find out that, my boss had some duplexes, and, that these people throughout the company that would get their bonus and had a decent bonus structure, and they'd go out and buy a rental property or buy a duplex. And particularly this one guy was really going hard. He was, taking out like credit card cash advances and buying these houses and then, rehabbing them up and then taking them to a bank and getting them refinanced out. You could just put these things right around on Craigslist and rent them right out immediately. I'm like, it's kind of interesting. I don't have any money though. I got 5,000 in the bank or something. And I remember talking to my parents like, hey, would you give me a loan to, I want to go buy this duplex or go buy that. And thankfully, because this would have destroyed the whole thing, thankfully they said no. And I still remember the pretty bad duplexes I was looking at, like these crappy city duplexes. And I was like, oh yeah, but I can buy this for 40,000. I take a loan from my parents. I do this and I can cash flow $200 aside, $300 aside. And had they said yes at that time, I think it would have gone horrible and I would have been a mess. And, I would have been
because they
done,
were the
right?
wrong properties.
Yeah. What I was looking at that time, I still remember those first couple I was looking at, just the type of tenant, the type of property.
Yeah.
And they said no. And I was like, oh, okay, darn it. What's wrong with you guys? You don't see the picture. And so, a couple months went by and I got my bonus. I think I was like a manager at that time in supply chain, I think, or engineering. And I got a $20,000, $22,000 bonus. And I was still kind of looking at houses. And I remember, talking with Huntington Bank, and I could put like 10% down. I was like, oh man, okay, $40,000 house, and only put $4,000 or $5,000 down plus closing costs. Maybe it was 6 or 7. And they were giving me a 30-year fixed at 4% or 3.75%. And I remember, I found one, and like within the same couple of days or something, found another, and we put them both under contract. I remember going back to my mortgage broker, like, hey, I know you approved me for, whatever, but can we buy 2 at the same time? Like, oh yeah, you guys, I was married. So we had just gotten married, and so she was on it too. She had a W-2, worked at Timken, so we were dinks, double income, no kids. So we qualified for financing, and she's like, yeah, it'll be a second 30-year fixed loan, same 10% down, and I got enough with that bonus. And so I remember, we had found out we were pregnant, and so here's my wife, like, hey, okay. We're having a kid and you're going to sign on 2 more mortgages. And this is 2012.
Okay.
And so
10 years ago.
we had signed, so we were buying those 2 rental properties, and I was leaving the Timken company for a job opportunity in Cleveland. So we were selling our primary house. We were taking a job relocation. We were going to have to buy or build a new house as part of a relocation package for the new job, and we're pregnant. And I think one of my family members was like, hey, just take it easy here. Like, this is a lot, make sure you guys aren't getting out and over your head with just too many things going on. And so, we did it. We closed on those 2 rentals, and they were both turnkey, one for 40,000, one for 50,000. I think I might have had somebody do like a little cleanup at one, but this was back when, man, the banks were putting in like new carpet and paint, and they were doing them all up because, there was just lots of inventory.
Did you buy them from a bank?
So they were both foreclosures.
Okay.
Yep. On the MLS. Yep. Both of them were foreclosures. But one of them was a 2008 4-bedroom, 2 full bath, stainless appliances, single attached garage for $50,000.
I
And
mean, that would cost 200 grand to build today, probably.
yeah, it was. It was a lower price point because it was built on what used to be somebody's second parcel. So the
Okay.
neighborhood itself was a 1930s, 40s neighborhood. Then this parcel got sold off, and somebody built this house there, tiny little lot. But I mean, great house, like 2006 house to buy for $50,000. So yeah, clean those both up. Rented one at, I think the $40,000 house was at 850. The other house at 950, and boom, put folks in. We started doing this relocation. We ended up having to build a house because we couldn't find it, and it was funny. So we had those two rental properties, and we were living in my wife's parents' basement while we built our house in Copley. And so that was our big joke, was we both had master's degrees. We own rental properties, but we live in our parents' basement.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so
Do
we
what you
did that.
gotta
We
do.
built the house. Yeah, we had to do that, and that's where we had our first daughter. Yeah, while we were living in our parents' basement, but it was great help. Her
Oh
mom
yeah.
was a retired nurse, and so we had great help. And I was driving up to the new job and outside of Cleveland, and that was it. I looked at those two properties as college fund, right? That was all I could really understand about. There was no podcast in 2012, or maybe there were, but like it wasn't a thing.
Right.
I didn't know of Bigger Pockets. I don't even know when it was started, but like there wasn't a lot of content besides like a lot of the schemy real estate programs. There wasn't masterminds. It's just everything was at its infancy, and so you just looked at it as like, oh, okay, these are each going to cash flow $300 a month, and I'm going to do that for 18 years, and then boom, that's college. I don't have to worry about saving for college for them, or weddings. So that was what it was. And
What a
out of
great
money,
time to
didn't know
get
what to
involved, though.
do.
I mean, 2012, like looking back at the last decade, that was
Oh,
like the lowest point, right around the lowest point, and it's just climbed from there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
those two properties, just before we move on from those, what are they worth now, you think?
So they're both sold now,
Oh, okay.
and so I do rent with purchase option.
Okay.
So the tenants always have the option to purchase at that agreed upon price. They're earning some equity, and then they're also responsible for repairs under $500. So what that does is it really takes away 95% of what you get maintenance calls on, right? Clogged drains, just all the little things. When they're
Yeah.
responsible, they're treating the property better. They know that, oh, if I don't change my furnace filter and it clogs up and it blows the motor, oh, that's on me. Or if I just pull the furnace filter and don't worry about it, now my sensors are going to get dirty, and that service call for the technician to clean the sensors, that's on me. So all the preventative maintenance goes on them, with the possible downside being you go into a great market that goes up 200%, and they have that locked price. Now where you have I guess a little more control is I give them that price for 4 years. And so if they go the 4 years, I'll absolutely write them another contract. I am not one of these predatory rent to own guys taking people's down payments, kicking them out. No, we'll write another contract. However, your purchase price goes to market.
Yeah.
So if we've gone up 100% in 4 years, which some of these folks have, yep, but we're carrying over your credits. You're still getting all your monthly credits you've earned, your down payment.
So a portion of the rent goes toward credit that they're accumulating.
Yes.
Nice.
Yep. So they're accumulating. So it is better than, because I'm at market rent too. I'm not higher than market rent. So it is better than if they're just pure rental.
Oh yeah.
But if they have the ability to get a loan, it's far better for them to go get a mortgage, and then 70% of their payment or whatever is going to principal. But
4 years is a long time to be able to, most people go into these situations because they are credit challenged. but to turn around your credit in 4 years, that's extremely doable if you actually want to.
If right now, that's the key. If we get into more conversation on the number of folks and they need to take that proactiveness. And I have mortgage brokers I try and line these folks up with. Hey, be working on their credit, be doing things, telling them. But you can only do so much for them. Mm-hmm. But so that was what enabled me to still have full-time W-2 and full, kids and family. But to your question on the price. So one of the tenants, so I think it would have been the second tenants that went into that first property, that 2006 4-bedroom. Mm-hmm. They closed on the property about 3 years ago at like 105. And I bet today that's 160.
Wow.
So, they've done very well, but even, I bought it for 50, rented it for, I think when they closed, I had collected almost $100,000 in rent on it and then still sold it for, more than double. Mm-hmm. And then the other one that was purchased for 40, that was sold in December. So just 4 months ago. And so that one collected over $100,000 in rent since the 2012 and sold for 140.
Wow. So $100,000 more. And it's with them covering the majority of the maintenance, how much do you think you put into those?
Nothing.
Really?
Besides a turn.
Yeah.
I get really so I can get, I'm through a buyer's consortium on furnaces. So everything pretty much, unless it's like a 3-year-old furnace, I get a new furnace installed for like $900. So boom, we're doing new furnaces. Roofs, most of the areas I bought, they got new roofs in like 2004 when a bad hailstorm happened. So everybody got insurance, all the roofing companies pounded here for insurance claim work. So almost everything I've bought has had dimensional, in that 2005. So those are good till, another 8 or so years.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything. Probably the biggest single, if we look at like the Pareto, would be tree roots in sewer drains and snakes and having to snake. Yeah. And if somebody's only been in there a couple months, I'll cover that $125 to get a grinder and grind that out. But if somebody's been in there for 2 years, they've got, here it is. And what I tell them is rock salt. You run rock salt down after they grind it and it'll kill off the roots.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Might take the tree, but hey, at least we'll solve that problem without having to get you a new sewer line.
Yeah.
But I read that somewhere, an $8 bag of rock salt, and just put down a couple pounds each month after they grind through it, and it'll kill off those roots.
Huh. Interesting. I love that model. I had a guy named Bill Powers on one of the first episodes that I did actually, and he owns like 200 rent to own type properties, very similar model, and it does kind of get a bad rap because there are kind of predatory landlords out there who, they know they're putting people in a position that they're never going to be able to turn their credit around in like a year or 6 months or whatever it is. And then they're taking all that money and, but if you do it the right way, I think it is so a win-win for all parties. I like that model a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I take a $2,000 and I've had people come to me that gave guys $5,000 and $6,000 down and they only had 18 months, 24 months. And that's what, gives it a bad rap when, if this person just came out of a bankruptcy, 24 months isn't enough. And you just took their $5,000 and now you're going to, So I just try to take, it's almost just like a double security deposit. It's, it goes towards their equity. And
that's great.
Yeah. So that was those first two. We found out we were pregnant again. So back to back, which I don't know that I necessarily recommend to have 13 months in between.
Wow.
We had a second daughter, and what I'm trying to think where I was. I think at that point is where I had found out about self-directing IRA.
Okay.
Because again, I still didn't know much about like portfolio lenders and lenders that would lend for the rehab, and I didn't understand what real estate could do. Like I hadn't read, I mean, the books that were out there, and there wasn't as much online. So I was just like, oh, okay, to get more money, I left this big 401k since I had been maxing that out and doing that whole routine. And so in 2013, that's what I did. I self-directed that and got it's about 250,000 into just a checkbook, right? Self-directed IRA, checkbook IRA, and I
Nice.
went out and bought 5 properties in that. I
Okay.
think a couple rentals, and then we did the first flip,
Hmm.
and yep, rehabbed it up, turned it
And you
around,
did the
sold
flip
it.
through the self-directed IRA as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Nice. Nice.
yep. And so, yeah, it's, that's just a process. So you report to the custodian, annually, and you'll pay tax on that at whatever those rates are when you start to draw it down, which we know are going to be higher, but it's a way to make a lot more than just sitting in the market.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So yours is a traditional, not a Roth.
Correct.
I see.
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
Yep. Yeah, you would have, I mean, there is something for that conversion, right? You pay all that. I never
Well,
really
you
looked
just
into it
pay the tax rate today. It'd be like withdrawing
at
it
the time.
basically, and switching it over, I believe, to Roth,
Mm-hmm.
which basically makes now it's pre-tax going into your Roth, but then on the back end, after you grow it, then it's all tax free on the back end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but everyone, you got to decide. Everyone's situation's different. So
Yeah. So I think, so I was like, okay, I'm done again. But then I connected with a local community bank, a portfolio bank. And I remember talking because I'd heard these other guys from Timken that I was still kind of connected with. They were using them. And I remember talking with him like, oh yeah, he'll finance the rehab. They say he sends an appraiser out to say, hey, if A, B, C, D, if this list of things is all done, what is the value of this property going to be? And so, I remember finding the property, and it made sense to looking at the numbers. I got a quote from a contractor, and put it under contract. Got the rehab list over to the lender, and lender got their appraiser on it. And this is the first one that like blew me away, because again, up until here, like I just had either went up front with a 30-year fixed and put my money down, or I had just paid cash for them. But on this one is where, I think I was buying it for 40, and I was putting 10 or 12 into it. And he comes back with, oh, this thing's going to be worth $90,000.
yeah.
And so you don't have to take anything to the table. We're cutting you a check for like $20,000 when I buy the house. And I'm like, what now? Like, I knew you were going to finance the rehab, but I don't even, like, the rehab's 10 and I'm going to the table and you're giving me 20. Like, oh, how does that make sense? And so I'm going to pocket money up front, and I'm going to cash flow $500 a month or something on this house.
So they were giving, so they were giving you all the funds when you purchased the property before you even done the rehab, and it's based on the appraised value of a rehabbed house.
Yeah.
Who was this? Did you say a community bank or just
It
like
was
a friend?
a community bank. They got 3 or
Really?
4 branches in Northeast Ohio, and
That seems.
I mean,
Is
they
that
were
normal?
right.
I haven't heard of, like, typically, you get.
They don't do it anymore.
Okay, got it.
They don't. They were being very aggressive, and they were right at that time.
Yeah.
Between me and other friend investors in this area, I mean, they put loans on 200-300 houses just with like 4 or 5 of us. So I know they had 1,000 plus, and they did very well.
Yeah.
Because it was in the market now. Now they did have a change in leadership like 2 years ago, and they stopped going into single families like that. And and I'm sure they looked at their portfolio base and said, oh, we've got a couple thousand Akron suburb houses. And,
Mm-hmm.
but, once I found that, process with them, I was like, oh, let's just, yeah. So,
Yeah.
I think that was and I think at that time too, was when I found Bigger Pockets and just would lose my evenings, just like, oof, going through every little forum there and learning. And then I believe, was it on Bigger Pockets where I was introduced to Grant Cardone?
Okay.
And I mean, right, people have different opinions, but like for certain situations, man, is Cardone fuel.
Yeah.
And like that, the 10X and Boba hit me at the right time to be like, just pedal to the metal, like pedal down, keep going, buy. And, I got the right real estate agents. I had the right lender in place. I, went through some rough experiences trying to find contractors on rehabs, but found a phenomenal guy, and the deals were still here, and it was boom. So I started taking down one a month. I think 2014 and 2015 were 12 to 15 house years.
These are all rentals, like Burr type
Yep,
strategy. So
yep,
using that
yep,
financing. Got it.
yep. And I think probably after the first year of doing that financing up front and doing some flipping, and again, we were living simple, right? We still had both our jobs, and we didn't touch the rental income, and we probably lived off of, we were probably living on 60 to 70% of our W-2 income. So we were able to take 20, 30% of that, plus all the rental income, plus all the flip income. And that just became the snowball there.
Wow.
And
One a
so once I
month
had
while
enough,
working a full-time job too, with two young kids. I mean, that's impressive. People, a lot of people I talk to are like, oh, I hope I could get one this year. One a month is hardcore, man.
it was, yeah, I mean, I went through that callousing of my mind.
Yeah.
Your hands get calloused and you can do more work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you first start out, oh my goodness, I'm an eviction. Oh, I got this couple, and I got her boyfriend calling me, her husband says he's leaving. Like, I got all these, this issue coming through. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do with this house and these people? And you go through those, and you go into this house that this horrible situation happened, and they left a dog, and the house is destroyed, and it gets turned around over the weekend, and it's rented for $100 more than it was with a great new tenant now. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
man, like, and that's, I forget the chapter now, chapter 13 and 10X, I think, fear, false events appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it always goes. And still to this day, I have to control that,
How do
when
you control that? Because I still get that too. Like we just had a property that was kind of borderline whether we should pull permits on, and opted not to. And of course, that's when the inspector showed up, shut it down. And, I'm jumping through all these hoops now. And it's still like, I know that I've done a couple hundred rehabs now. I know how it all goes, but I'm working alone. And I think that's part of the challenge is that, I don't have like a co-founder to talk to or bounce ideas off of. It's just me. Like, and so, your mind, just like you talked about, it's like that fear, that, negative talk can kind of like build up. So how do you combat that? And how do you recommend others do that?
Hard question, hard question to answer, because, I just went through it here recently with partnerships and loans and the things. And yeah, when that stuff's going on, you're churning. And the worst for me is like at 4:30 a.m. The
Yeah.
time when I used to get up for my W-2 and work out to be in by 6. And so I start tossing and turning, and especially if there's something bad going on,
Mm-hmm.
with investments, all these things just start turning in your head.
Mm-hmm.
I started to do Medito, that meditation app,
Okay.
and very calming and refreshing. To say, did it help with that? I mean, I think the biggest thing that helps with that is just taking action on it,
Yeah.
because at least with me, I want them to go away without taking control and taking action of it.
Yeah.
You got this situation with a tenant, and oh my goodness, like I don't want to go serve a notice. I don't want to go, what's going on? Like, or these situations. And if you just pull the Band-Aid off, take the action, file the eviction, go up there, see the property, um, call the partners and do a sit down. Like, I'm tired of you avoiding me and doing this and telling me this. Um, and you just got to get through it, because then you look back at it and you're like, oh, I was so worried about all these
Yeah.
things. And okay, it all worked out. And that's how it has generally gone. And the thing at my point, it's not, it's more the relationships and being disrespected that's more affecting on me than money.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I have a large lawsuit against an investment that I did with some people here, but it's handed off to the courts. The attorneys got it, and I hardly. I mean, I think about it, but it doesn't wake me up in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like tenant issues or partnership where I'm being like ignored and disrespected from a partner on something, that's the stuff that eats away at me. So I don't know how you get to those points. Like a couple of my friends where they're just ducks and everything just kind of flies off their
Yeah.
back, right? It's tough. I
Yeah.
think you probably there's people who would be more concerned with a money issue and less concerned about feelings and relationships and being disrespected, or I'm that way now with those things. And so you have to tailor your next steps and your investment strategies around, am I going to do less of those now, where there's a risk, where there'll be less risk of partnership issues and disrespect and those, and just more K1 syndications and more owning my own rentals to where it's all on me. If there's no partner involved to screw things up or have disagreements with. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's where I try to be this lifestyle investor. I think that's Justin Donald's thing, and that's kind of how I've been focusing on my investments now, is that the lifestyle I want. And but then you get shiny objects, and this
Yeah.
partnership could make a lot of money, and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I think
so
that perspective though is really important to recognize what it is that's keeping you up, or waking you up, making you think about it, because I same thing with me. It's and I recently had a contractor pull me aside who I've worked with for a long time, and he's like, I know you're pissed off about this property that got shut down, and he and I have very different mindsets around money and investing and time and all this stuff. So initially I kind of was blowing off what he said a little bit, but then I paid attention to it, and he's like, you know what, this is business. Like, you're going to have these things. You got to take the emotion out of it. You're going to have to pay $10,000 more to a plumber now than you were planning to, because, they're making you do all this stuff. And, instead of taking it personally and, saying, oh, the sky is falling, say, we're going to make it up in the next one. And just, you got to just remove that emotion, and it's so hard to do. So yeah.
So I think then through, we were like 2015, 2016, just got up to, I don't know, in the 40 rentals, flipping. That was probably around then when I started looking at other things. Right, it felt like this is enough rentals, and let's slow down. But I still have this huge desire to keep growing, to keep building income, and I got a lot more into it. And at that point, right, I'd taken the red pill from the Matrix, and now I'm opened up to, oh man, it's not about the day job and saving an egg that you'll drain down in retirement. It's about getting to retirement like within a couple of years here, and having all sorts of colors in my bar chart for monthly income coming in. And Tim Shiner said it, great, legs under your table. right?
Mm.
You don't just want one leg under your table, right? You want 50 legs or 100 legs under your table, and all these different things so that your table never, never tip over. And so I guess I skipped a big part. So in 2014, so this is before the big push. So before we really started going, I might have had 4 or 5 properties, 2013, 2014. I was let go. So I lost our main source of income by far. That was when, my wife was pregnant, and we knew, like, with 2 young
Wow.
kids, how much was she going to be able to work? And I remember being in tears. Like, I was actually in a hotel room doing a training for this company, and they didn't realize that they forgot this whole conference was going on that I was teaching and training supervisors at, when they were like, yeah, your job was eliminated. I'm like, oh, well, what about all these people that are here at this hotel that I'm teaching?
Good
It
timing.
was private equity that they don't know, knee jerk reaction of
I
a
see.
quarterly miss, and over the weekend make decisions. And that's how it funneled out on a Monday.
Wow.
But I just remember, like, well, it was bad. Like, what are we going to do? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have nearly enough rental income. It was 2,000 a month, 1,500 a month or something. And kids and this. And fortunately, right, I mean, it didn't take but a day or two on LinkedIn, and like everybody was like, oh man, yeah, we want to interview you, and different colleagues and connections, and landed perfectly. But that was one of those experiences that, like, I don't want this to ever happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to let this happen again. And so you take that horrible experience combined with, like, Cardone, Bigger Pockets, Tim Ferriss, Robert Kiyosaki, and it's just like, go, 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 go.
Yeah.
This is Reynolds is what I know. I don't know any of these other things like I'm into now, but I know Reynolds. I know what it can do, and so it was just foot down, keep going, and then to this point, like, where I was like, okay, let's look at other things, and started doing money lending. So taking the flip profits, doing money lending with that. So now I'm building up, like, other interest income coming in. And then bought a trampoline park as I started to watch Biz Buy Sell, to look at businesses to buy. And I got some partners, and we went in on one of these big kids trampoline parks, which
You're probably the biggest hero for your daughters.
that's what this thing was. It was a fun 3-year venture for my kids to enjoy, and birthday parties, and that's all that it was. And we fortunately ended up getting out nice and clean, just because of the real estate, really. We didn't own the building, but we had the lease of a great space. And our landlord knew, like, just partnership challenges, business challenges, employee challenges. He knew, like, we weren't doing well and real happy. And so he came to us with a 6-figure offer. I think his first one was like 100,000, like, to leave. Him and a tenant. And we're like, no, we owe more than that, because we had the EIDL from COVID. We took that economic injury disaster loan to help the park go. And he's like, oh, well, he came back like 150,000. And that's when we started to realize, I talked with a commercial broker, and they were like, your space is one of the most desirable in all of the North Canton area because of the 30-foot ceilings, the dock doors. He's like, wow, there's a lot of people that would want your space. And so, in amongst the partnership, we talked, and we're like, okay, here's what we want to pay off our debts, get our principal buy-ins back out of this, get paid off of all the equipment that we put in. And so, he worked with that tenant, and they came in, and they paid us just to leave, to break our lease and leave. And that's what saved us from taking, like, a loss on it. We ended up getting out clean, and it was a place for the kids for a couple of years. And it was unfortunate that we did have to close it for the community. It's one less place. But in this environment today with employees,
Well,
especially
it
just
was
the
COVID. I
younger.
mean, you probably were shut down for a while, right?
So, yep, we were shut down. And so that EIDL made up for that shutdown,
Okay.
to cover the debts and some of the rent. But then now you got that debt that you're going to have to start paying back.
Mhm.
Um, we'd always had some challenges with staff, and it's upsetting to reflect back, right? When we were 15, 16, 17 years old, the work ethic that I'm sure you had, that I know I
Mhm.
had when I worked at a drugstore or a golf course, and just you worked, right? Now we didn't have phones to distract us and be, so it's tough to say we were that much better than the kids, the efforts of the work today. But yeah, I mean, just keeping kids off their phones and working, it was a challenge there. And so I'm glad to be done with it. I don't think I'll ever be a part of such a heavily customer intrinsic business,
Got it.
a couple
Yeah.
hundred people through there on Saturdays and Sundays, and customer issues, employee issues, broken ankles, broken legs, broken wrists, broken
Yeah.
arms, lawsuits. So that was my first like real venture outside of, and yeah, glad. I was like, man, if I just need to go back and focus. But that took the 3 years up just until last year, when we got out of it. But the the other things I've been much happier with, related to real estate, is the syndications. Is where I've put the large majority of rental income, the house sales that I've been selling off these rentals, focusing on really becoming like a professional hard asset investor now on the syndication side of all the different models, different asset types, different regions. So that's been
So are
my
you putting
pivot.
together syndications or you're passive
No,
investing?
just an investor.
Got it.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. And it's worked out
It's
really well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming to that point where they all start, they start to trickle back,
Hmm.
right? If you look at it in my mind, I kind of tell people like I'm looking at these syndications like CD laddering, right? You've heard of the CD laddering,
Hmm.
buy a 5-year CD every year for 5 years, and then boom, every year you have a 5-year CD kicking back to you. So syndications generally are on a 3 to 6 year payback, whether it's through a refinance and your principal and an estimated return amount are coming back to you, and you're still staying a residual owner, or the sale, the exit of that asset, and it's a complete closeout and all those funds. So I'm now coming into that year 3, year 4 of where I started going heavier into them. And yeah, I've been pumping that primer, continue to pump it through this year. And now we'll start to see all those things coming back. And, if I continue pushing in, plus the proceeds that are coming back in, that thing is just going to continue to grow and grow and grow, which at this point of where I want to be from passivity and just no stress. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that I definitely see myself continuing to focus on, and be an active passive investor.
Yeah.
Right. So not throwing my money into a fund that's
Got it.
then, I'm throwing my money into specific deals that I like the asset type, like car washes or self-storage, or I love the region, like the Tampa St. Pete MSA, or the Dallas or the Carolinas, the heavy growth. And then, really focusing on investing with the same sponsors that I really like, that I've vetted out, that I have the cell phone numbers of the head guys, that I've met with, been to their events. That was a big thing that hit me from Brian Burke's book, The Hands-Off Real Estate Investor, was focus on doing more deals with fewer sponsors. So
Mm.
once you've really spent the time to vet out, meet, and sign off on that sponsor, right? Then just do more deals with them.
Yeah.
And that's generally what I've been doing is doing most of the deals that maybe the 6 different sponsors that I've been investing with now, and those are across trying to get good diversity of different models, from development versus buying existing assets and turning them around. And then, a mix of the refi and hold syndications versus the sale syndications.
Got it. Okay. And do you have, like, I've looked at some commercial deals recently, but the thing that scares me is the interest rates. Is that a fear for you? Like, because obviously that dictates pricing a lot, is, the financing. So are you concerned about that, or what's your thought on that?
Most of all the ones I'm seeing, they have that locked in for like that 3 to 5 time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they're either refinancing it, and they're going to be refinancing it based off this new turnaround. So, let's just talk, DeRosa Capital, right? Great sponsor, Matt Faircloth. And they've got these things locked in for this rehab, this turnaround, right? And then they'll refi out, go into a longer term, likely a long-term fixed, and then they'll hold that for another 5 to 7 years. Versus like Lurin is another one that I like. That is they're the flippers, right? They're buying them, repositioning them, then they're going to sell these things in that 3 to 4 year, and that's they're locking up a good term here for that 3 to 4 year hold to get this thing sold at that same cap rate that they entered in at. But now they've increased a 680 unit by $125 a unit, so they've added $28 million in equity to the sale.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Yeah. I was always thinking about, like, on the turn side, if all of a sudden the note comes due 3 to 5 years later, and rates are now, when they initially forecasted there, it was like 4%. Now they're 8%, so but I guess if you've created that much equity in the property from the income side of the equation, then you're sitting in a good spot.
I think there's more risk in cap rate compression not being planned into the deal than I think they know. Most of these, they've got good, either locked in or good plans on their debt service rate over the duration of the ownership. But the cap rate, their exit cap rate, is where, you don't know, like 3-4 years from now, if 1031s go away, right? If 1031s go away, and this is way out of my pay grade, but if 1031s go away, I would assume, like, you can't see things selling at 3 caps anymore, in the large A class, right? That a lot of that money it's getting put to work to avoid paying tens of millions of dollars in taxes. So I think that if 1031s go away, I think you'll see a lot of the great assets that sell now in the low caps, right? They'll probably, lose some of that and raise up a little bit. And that could be, I think that could be a significant impact if something was planned to exit, right, at a 4 cap, and now, it has to exit at a 5 cap.
Yeah. You never know. I mean, it's obviously you're making calculated decisions, and but
trust the sponsor, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We can look, and we can devise and formulate, but it comes down to trust in the sponsor. And when they're one way to make, to essentially force that is the co-investment, to always make sure that they've got at least like a 10% co-investment in, and then the quicker deals. Most of the syndications I've done here in the last year have been development. Definitely seeing a more compelling return case and quicker paybacks on these. You're developing that equity into it versus having to pay these rates today on existing assets. And so I like these development deals, whether it's self-storage, car washes, kiddie countries, daycares in Texas that are blowing up from everybody moving there.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. So I don't want to keep you too long here, but just to recap, so I think a lot of people who listen to this, they are in a 9 to 5 job. They want to be living
Mm.
off rentals, as the name implies. And so if you kind of look back, you kind of talk through your whole progression, and it was like slow. You had like the 4 or 5, and then you lost your job. Then you got really on fire, and you accumulated about 40 rental properties. And then you started to diversify into the loans and the syndications and bought a business. At
Mm.
what point do you feel like, I mean, you kind of left your job earlier than you probably thought you were ready to? Well, I guess you got another job though. When did you
So
feel like you were,
yeah.
financially free enough to leave your 9 to 5?
So I leveraged the ability to not have to work to get better, easier jobs.
Okay.
I made jumps here, at the end. Right. My whole background was manufacturing, and
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing is stressful, right? You got
Mm-hmm.
customer deadlines. If you shut down customers, you can be looking at enormous, right, fines to shut down a customer. And I was in a private equity company, and I was just getting pounded by a Yosemite Sam head of operations. Just, he had a toolbox with one tool in it, just a hammer, and so that's all he did. He just pounded, pounded, pounded. And I remember just being like, dude, why am I doing this? Like, I'm making 3 or 4 times what I make as a director of engineering. And I'm working all this, I'm doing all this and just getting beat up. So I was like, all right, I think I'm going to be done. And then I got hit on LinkedIn about going into healthcare. And the guy who was hiring me was like, man, healthcare is a mess. And coming from operations with a continuous improvement background, like, you can do so much good here, and it's not hard work. Like, healthcare is a mess. And so that's when I jumped into healthcare. I was also private equity, and I enjoyed it because these were people that wanted to do the right thing, but they've just worked in healthcare, and they didn't think like, oh, like, it's an operation. Like, it has
Mm-hmm.
inventory, it has processes, it has outputs, it has customers. Like, and you need to look at it just like you do making an automobile or making a window or making a bearing. And so they were bringing in a lot of folks to help change it. And another reason I took that job is because I wanted to grow my rentals down in that area.
Mm.
So there was two prong of, okay, I was tired of more rentals up here in the north. I want to grow down here in south in the Canton area. And hey, that'll put me way down there, and perfect. And it worked out great for the 14 months I was there. A much lower stress job, and I grew 10 properties or something the last 10 to take me to like 65 or somewhere in there. And I remember, just constantly telling my group of friends, like, oh, I gotta quit. Like, why am I even doing this? And they're like, oh, like, loans were so easy with a high W-2 and everything. We still just lived off that W-2, and we weren't touching this thing that was just snowballing enormously. And that's what I try to tell everybody is, don't, I talk to guys, oh, I made $5,000 wholesaling a house, I'm quitting my job. No,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
horrible idea. Like, don't do that. Like, live off your job for as long as you can. And, fortunately, because I was addicted to the snowball, I don't know when I would have quit. But fortunately, the day came, private equity again. Hey, they missed numbers. And, most of these companies, they need to keep the vertical, right? The people
Yeah.
that run the business, the people that improve the business, right? Yeah, we can get rid of you guys.
Jeez.
And so the same thing happened. But just night and day from when it happened 6, 7 years before, right? With 3 or 4 rentals, and I'm in tears, and my wife's in tears, and we're trying to figure this thing out, to now, oh my goodness, like, all right, I got to get a cell phone and a laptop, and I got to get insurance, but like,
Yeah.
that it's retirement, like, it's time to
Yeah.
retire. And so, yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, my piece of advice for people working is, you got to do them both. Like, you got to keep that job, because it'll be very hard to get loans if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a W-2. And you don't want to live off that income right now. You need to just keep snowballing and growing that income. And and just put your vision together. And that's what I always had. I was tons of KPIs in my day job. And so I had KPIs for all my real estate of what I wanted to see the monthly income. And then after I moved, after I expanded from rentals, it's like, all right, I want to get 10 colors in my bar chart for monthly income, right? I want 10 different things.
Sources
This
of income.
loan,
Yeah.
yep, all these different things. And now it's syndications and it's house sales and it's rentals and it's interest income and e-com store income and all these other things that I'm into. And, just trying to diversify those. But yeah, I mean, you got to keep it and let that stuff all snowball, because as soon as you start to live off of it is when it gets, stymied and stops. And then you realize you can't get loans, and
Yeah.
it becomes all that much tougher.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I mean, if the longer you can hold out, obviously the better position you're going to be in. And yeah, the financial picture changes. I actually, it's funny. The VA loans, one of the best loans out, 100% financing. And I don't even have it because I didn't get my house refinanced before I left my full-time job. So it's like, I've considered just getting a W-2 job just to get the VA loan, just to refinance into that. Cause I've got a lot of equity that we're sitting on after a lot of the remodels that we've done on our land and stuff. So, but yeah, that is true. It's a great point you bring up. And what a great illustration for people, like, the difference between being fired with 4 rentals and just starting out to, hustling for 6 years. And then, it's like a blessing. They're setting you free. So that is awesome. Very nice. Well, I really appreciate this. This has been really informative and really helpful for people who are like getting started to see the progression and what's possible. Because that's the hard part, I think, when you're first getting started, is to know, can I do this? Have other people done this before? They have. It is possible. It's just like you said, putting the blinders on, kind of putting your head down and saying, okay, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do one a month. I'm going to 10X this thing and figure out how to make it happen, and getting through those setbacks. So really, really appreciate that. If people want to ask any other questions or reach out to you, what's the best way? Is it social media or?
Yeah, probably on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's something we didn't get into. I'm not a brand guy. I don't have a brand. I've contemplated and kind of battled, like, hey, do I want to build that? But I don't. I learned everything right by just absorbing content out there. So I haven't wanted to create a training program to sell. I've more like really tried locally to partner with folks, provide money in, partner in their business, give them the mentoring, the coaching, and trying to build things here with people where I have the opportunity to build, but not the obligation of, this is my company that I'm building. And because I've just really become so protective of time now, like family, friends, versus like wanting to build, a brand and sell things. It's like, no, I'll just keep buying the passive assets that allow me to have the lifestyle. And I do love coaching and talking with people, but I'm going to do it selectively, locally, and try to put my money with the horse too, and not just, try to teach him something. It's like, no, you got my money. So, I want to make sure you succeed, and putting money in the game. Right.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, but yeah,
awesome.
On LinkedIn, they can find me on LinkedIn.
Cool. Awesome. Well, sounds good. Well, I appreciate that. And I know people are really going to benefit from this, and we'll continue to stay connected, and I'll be interested to see what's next for you.
All right. It's great. Yeah. Great being in touch. Hopefully we get keep in touch, and then again at RoofCon next year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Yep. Bye.